All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aaron Banner. Hey, Tim, how do you hear me?
Perfect.
My audio is okay, and you see the slides?
Clear and perfect. Yep.
Okay, great. So yeah, thanks for everyone for joining us today. I think we've got some great content for you here. I'm going to go through a few things and just introduce you to XenTegra, to the people on the team here, and talk a little bit about how we're going to roll out this podcast. What I do want you to take away is that I don't know if any of you remember. I know as a child I read these books that were basically about choose your own conclusion. So where you get to a point in the book and you want to go down one path or the other and you choose, and that's where the book takes you. This webinar, please treat it similarly. Ken has probably 200 and some odd slides in his deck. He does not intend to go through anywhere near that many, but we have that so that if you want to pivot from what we're talking about, please jump in the chat or just, I don't know if everyone has audio or not, but if you do, just come on up and tell us what you want to talk about. We'd love to address the things you need to hear as opposed to the things we think you need to hear. Okay, with that, I'm going to move on to the next slide. I think. Okay, quick agenda. All right, so let's talk about who Ken and I are. So Ken, who's going to be your presenter today, he's been in the industry over 20 years dealing with IT and IT security. He's a veteran of the Royal Canadian Navy, and he's worked for multiple companies such as SourceFile, Zscaler, Vectra AI, Palo Alto, Trellix, and Code Hunter. He also has a bit of experience there in the startup community. Ken joined Versa back in 2024, and he's here really to support key partners like us, XenTegra. For me, so hey, I run the networking and security practice. Honestly, SASE is really the thing that pulled XenTegra into me running both. I kind of started out running the security practice, and then SASE has just become so big, and we see so much potential in it that we combine those two practices, and now I run both. So I come from a background of the military. I spent 31 years in the Army. I retired as an Army colonel. 26 of those 31 years were spent active duty, really focusing on all networking and cybersecurity, or all things cyber, I guess. My last 10 years were really focused a lot more in the cyberspace than the networking space. So we move to the next slide. Sorry, these transitions are not happening quickly for me. Okay, so who are we? So XenTegra is formed of four broader companies. We've got our nearshore company in Canada. We've got our offshore company in India. We have an SMB that's out in California. We call them XenTegra One, and they focus strictly on SMB market and developing solutions for that market. Then we also have our XenTegra Services, which is our MSP. Within XenTegra internally in the LLC, we have 5 key practices. We have the two I just mentioned, networking and security. We have a modern data center practice. We have a modern applications practice, really focusing a lot on ServiceNow. And then we have a modern workspace practice. So just a little bit about us. We are a value-added reseller. We like to say that we are VAR 2.0. And what that really means is, our focus is on building a community and really developing solutions that will serve that community. So we do that in a multitude of ways, which I'll cover in a later slide. But these are just things that really make us distinctive from a lot of the VARs that you might deal with. We have consulting services, and so that spans from, I guess, what you would say a tactical level of consulting, very specific focused problems, to the operational and then strategic level. Our consulting services are vendor agnostic, so when you come to us, it's not a vendor, XenTegra client discussion. It's really about us finding out, where you're trying to go, where you're currently at, and developing solutions and recommending products that are going to get you there in the best way. As I said, we have a managed service company, our XenTegra service, MSP, various services we do there, from some security services like Tanium and some Fortinet things to networking with Cisco, backup as a service, various things we can do through our managed services. You can just take a look at what that is through our portal. And then we offer multiple complimentary assessments. Most are at no cost to you. They're fully complimentary. It cost to us, but not cost to you. And some are just we've negotiated very low prices to be able to offer some of our vendor services to do assessments for you. So XenTegra, it was basically born out of a need to enable our customers. Our CEO Andy Whiteside, he cut his teeth in Citrix. He spent a lot of time over there being the lead engineer for the United States there. But one of the things he saw was that with the Citrix model, there just wasn't really a way to develop something for our clients for their clients at the time, that would really give them the services they need, the advice they need around Citrix to best enable what they did on a daily basis. So that's been kind of what drove us to here, what started our company, and that's what we continually try to focus on, is building that community and ensuring we're developing services that you need, services either that we you need, or solutions that you come to us with that we need to develop for you. So, like I said, I talk a little bit about some of these other things as far as like complimentary assessments. We do lots of educational webinars. You're in one right now, but we do them at least monthly, and many times 2 to 3 a month. So, those are all on our website. You can find them in our events page. We do hands-on workshops, sometimes at the request of a client that wants us to come out and put a workshop together. And many times at the request of one of our vendors or multi-vendors, where we bring them into an environment and do that workshop with theirs and our clients combined. We do multiple podcasts. Every director here, include our CEO, has a podcast. I have 3 myself. I do one where it's really more of a vendor focus. It's called Command and Control. I do one called Situation Room, where we try to break down any of the newest vulnerabilities that we've seen, pulling in vendors, partners, if we see that it's in their space, and then talking to you about what happened and what we think is happening, what we can do to change that. And then I do another called Short Bursts, which is try to keep 5 to 10 minutes about a relevant topic, but break things down in a way that it doesn't take you all day to sit there and listen to a podcast. Finally, we offer conference passes, deeply discounted conference passes, 90% discount on things like I do one for RSA and for Black Hat every year. Whether it's a Cisco or a Fortinet or the F5 conference, we really host many of those conferences, and we offer passes to our clients at a very discounted price. Okay. Here, I'm gonna turn this over to Ken here in a minute, but I don't want him to have to sing his own praises. So let me talk just a little bit about some of the great things that from Versa that I think you'll appreciate. So, established in 2014, leading vendor in secure SD-WAN, SASE, and secure service edge. If you're not familiar with Versa, Versa is one of only 3 companies listed in all 3 of the most recent Gartner Magic Quadrants for SD-WAN, SASE, and secure service edge. They're also recognized as the global leader in artificial intelligence and machine learning in the unified construct of these technologies. If you're wondering who those other 2 vendors are, they're Fortinet and Palo Alto. So they were right there in the same bunch with those 2. The main difference between Versa and Palo Alto / Fortinet is that, as I mentioned, Versa is a unified SASE provider, where Palo and Fortinet are single vendor SASE providers. And I know Ken's going to get into a lot more description about the distinction between unified and single vendor SASE. Versus unified SASE solution was organically built. It includes advanced routing capabilities, integrated security such as ZTNA, secure web gateway, next gen firewall, and CASB. So with that, I want to turn it over to Ken. Thank you all again for joining. And Ken, talk to them about some bourbon, and let's get into the brief.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess what I'd like to do is just a little bit of just kind of ground rules at the beginning. So when I went through the list of attendees, so we've got everybody from, C-level, executive team to literally, mid-tier SOC engineers that, they're doing this for their shifts and all that stuff. So I'm not going to bore you with 317 slides. So what I'd like to do is level the playing field a little bit. So first of all, very interactive. If I use a term you don't know, procedure you don't know, if I make an assumption or something or an acronym or whatever, just jump in and stop me. The more interactive this gets, I think the better it's going to be for everybody, because I can't come at this from a single point of view just based on the attendees and kind of where you guys are from and ladies are from. So let's just start off a little bit about SASE, right? What SASE is, what are we trying to solve? And what's the problem as we see it, right? So initially, especially post-COVID, you don't really know anymore your physical points anymore, right? So branch offices, easy lifting, right? But nowadays, when somebody's in a coffee shop, I know it's cliche, you go to Gartner for a weekend, you go there for a weekend, there's a lot of different things that happen. You can't do it from protected environments, right? So you've really got to step back. Well, you need that protected environment, the SD-WAN environment. That's going to really cover you from the edge on, right? That's what's going to give you that protection and control. When you think about it from a traditional point of view, the layer 3, 4, 7 stuff, but from Versa, we come at it from a user point of view, right? So we do care physically the device you're coming from, obviously, right? We have policies that we can put around that. But what we don't have anymore is the control on the physical end station and where it resides, right? And how you're utilizing it. All we know is the user, right? The employee needs to access some sort of data, cloud-based, maybe on-prem, whatever it may be. And how are we going to be able to address all their needs and all the company's needs with authorization control, proper security requirements, and things like that. So traditionally, these are the moving pieces that right now, the industry is dealing with. So everybody on the call has devices that are contained in here. A lot of them are not going to be the same vendors, right? And then you get into the argument about design having to take APIs into consideration. Are they open APIs? How do we tie all this stuff back in together again? What's the slowness on that, right? If I'm still having heavy VPN usage, then I'm back into the backhauling argument, latency argument, all these things. So these are all the things that I think we need to talk about and what Versa is trying to solve, right? So what we want to do is give you a simple place that gives you complete technical visibility, right, and control, but without a lot of complication. So if you're talking, you have needs from just the physical side of life, I have branches I need to stand up, right? We can address that. I didn't bring up the vendors at the beginning of the call, but we won against one of our top competitors from the SD-WAN side of the house, just specifically because they couldn't do mass amounts of stand-ups, right? So imagine sending 100 appliances out to 100 different locations and having to have them stood up, right? What does that look like? Well, in the real world, somebody might have to go out, boots on the ground, right? Stand it up. Put down some custom software writing and things like that. What we've done with our zero touch provisioning, right, is we're just putting these appliances, and I know I'm bouncing around a lot because I'm trying to, again, give everybody a different lens to look at things through. So, you know, we ship 100 appliances out to 100 different locations. All we need is somebody to plug in the plugs, right? Just make sure that Ethernet 1 has the right management plug, power is plugged in, turn it on, and everything else is done from a central management point, right? All the policies will be applied. It'll be authorized. The only interjection you have to do is validate a serial number, which kind of makes sense. But beyond that, if you have company policies in place, they're going to be automatically applied, depending on whatever that is. And to back that up a little bit more, all of those devices, regardless of where they are in the world, whether they're hybrids sitting in the cloud somewhere and you're utilizing that, whether it's a physical appliance, you know, that's going to be contained with the same operating system that we call VOS, right? Versa operating system. Now, every one of those points of presence that you have control on has the ability to do everything we offer, right? From all walks of everything we do, whether it's SD-WAN, security, firewall as a service, whatever it is, right? That device has all of the same abilities as all the other devices. It's just, does the policy apply to that device, right? If that device's only job is it's a gateway or it's just a router and that's all it's doing, no problem. It's a hub. That's cool. Not a problem. So it may not have a lot of the functionality needed, right? Because that's not the purpose of it. That's not what it's licensed for. You may have different points of presence that have everything turned on, right? So you're talking about, you know, full NGFW with everything that comes into play with that from a gateway perspective, as well as routing, switching, and the whole 9 yards. Does this make sense to everybody? Anybody want to jump in? Because this is going to get real boring. All right. So from Versa's perspective, our answer to this is to look at what are all the pieces of the pie that need to be addressed and what are the best solutions for them and where should they be applied, right? And when I go back to the very beginning, if you think about it, it's from a user perspective. They're trying to access data. They need to be authorized, accounted for. We need to make sure what they're where in the network they want to go from a zone perspective. You know, is that, are they authorized to be there? Are they authorized to be there from a group perspective, right? If they're part of HR, does HR have rights to get there? And again, it's what is the right tool for the job to get them the best connectivity with the best authorization and accountability with all the security balances that come into play for the company. And again, being able to go anywhere. So if you're talking about, you know, just a basic CASB functionality where they have to get to, you know, cloud-based services, right? Then that's what we need to do is authorize, make sure they're going where they need to go and they have the ability to get there. The data they're trying to access is authorized, you know, is able to be accessed by them. Sorry about that. I'm not going to try and read all these slides. It's going to get really, really boring quick. Does anybody have any objections? Does this make sense to everybody? As far as their SASE, SSE, SD-WAN? All right, cool. So when we think about, you know, SASE from an overall perspective and what Versa One is trying to solve is putting together those pieces, right? From secure SD-WAN and SSE. So where do you need the protective pieces? Where do you need the accountability? Where do you need the access, right? So from Versa, we've got 90 points of presence if you need to utilize the SASE or the SSE services, sorry. So the internet gateway services. So regardless of where you are in the world, right, you're going to be able to get high-speed connection with full accountability, authorization, and access to what you need to get. And that's going to be brought with all the checks and balances that an SSE is going to offer. JT, do you have anything you want to jump in on? I hate
Okay, I think you're doing great.
Okay. So one of the things, one of the things I don't want to do is just read, again, I hate to say that a lot, but when we look at what the Versa operating system, right, and what it offers you is all of these different pieces of software control, routing, switching, security checks and balances, gateway. In some cases, you can be looking at wireless functionality, depending on where the branch locations are and things like that, but as well as the SSE functionality, right? If somebody is just sitting on their phone and they need all that protection, they get everything, And I think that that's something that virtually none of our competitors can bring to bear. And when you look at the underlying factors to that, and not to pick any one competitor, but a lot of our competitors will buy different software companies, amalgamate technologies and things like that. And the problem is you can make it look pretty on the surface, but on the underlying, you're still writing custom APIs. There's still different VMs and different physical devices and things. There's latency, slowdowns. There's a million different reasons why you wouldn't want that, right? And with VOS, that's what we've really, really tried to address, is to bring all that under one roof so that we can address whatever the needs and functionalities are. We have absolutely all that control at all of those points that you've got it, whether it's appliances or cloud or whatever, wherever your presence is, you're going to have those that functionality, right? And when you talk about, you know, what other people are saying about the technology, right? There's full breadth what we get here, right? It's not just Gartner that's saying what we're saying, and it's not just the vertical that we're talking about when we talk about unified SASE, right? We're talking about Gartner seeing it, Gigamon seeing it, just across the board, Forrester. And when we talk about certifications, one of the things that I always like to bring attention to is the ISO certifications, right? Because not a lot of companies in cybersecurity go for all the ISO certifications. And I think that's really relevant, especially when we look at things like FedRAMP and those types of things. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to jump in. All right.
Yeah, hey, just so you know, I don't think that everyone on here has access to audio.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you know, if so, just I'll be monitoring the chat room.
Please
and
do.
if questions put in there, I'll make sure to present them to you. Okay.
Okay, thanks. I didn't know that. Cool. So, you know, just to bring it all back, what is it that we're trying to address with the technology, right? We need to give any user from any device, anywhere, access to anything that we need them to get access to, whether we're a conduit for it, whether we hold the data on site, right? Whether it's a CASB type authorization, just depends on what it is. But within that, we need all that security checks and balances, right? And when we look at that from a legacy perspective, again, when we look at network security, a lot of those currently in the environments that you guys are coming from are going to be different vendors, and they're trying to address it different ways. The easiest real world analogy I like to bring out is firewalls versus IDS, right? Or IPS. IPS, IDS type systems, because of the way they work, they're very, very idle hot. They run at above 80% usually CPU usage. And when you look at a firewall, right, it's trying to get traffic through as fast as it can, right? And if you're looking at those two things individually with their own lenses and you try to put them together, you can't. You've got to give somewhere. If you're the firewall, you've got a fast path traffic from the IPS. The IPS doesn't want to do that. It wants to slow down so it's got complete visibility, right? But if I've all done that and designed that from the ground up, right, with the same needs in mind that everybody's had, but just looking at it again, I hate to overuse it, but a different set of eyes, right? A different lens that I can address it like I have with Versa 1, which is a single flow through whatever the requirements are, right? Is it network related? Is it just CASB related? Is it routing? Is it switching? What am I trying to solve? But I can do all that in one environment, right? With everything that I need to do. By the way, the one thing that I should mention on this is there's points as security analysts that it's not just next along. It doesn't visualize very well. There are points where you'll be doing numerous things at the same time in parallel for the processing and speed that don't need to be done inline. And then they'll come back together based on policy at whatever point that is along that check and balances of security needs route, basically. I can't think of a better way to verbalize it that way. Okay, and again, you know, what are the needs of you guys as a company? Is it strictly just security? Or, you know, because I come from the strict security point of view. I mean, Aaron mentioned at the beginning, I've got 25 years strictly working for cybersecurity vendors in the industry as an SE. So I've been doing this a long time. And when you look at it traditionally, you're trying to solve 15 different problems with 15 different devices and then figuring out how to make them all talk together, right? From different mindsets. And that's what we've really, really done and been able to bridge that just through, you know, approaching it initially from an SD-WAN point of view and then evolving into how can we take all that tight network security and software driven security and incorporate that with SSE, right? And that's, again, just to bring it all back, that's what Versa 1 has really, really brought back into it. Let's see, I'd like to jump in really quick here.
Hey, Ken, just while you're at a starting point here.
Sure.
So we went ahead and enabled everyone to access audio. So in the event that doesn't work, again, please just come up in the chat and we'll try to get the question answered. But if you want to try to come in and pose a question or make a comment, please do. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Did anybody have anything before now? Because I threw a lot at you pretty quick there.
I'll just add to, is this the level of discussion you guys are looking for? Is it on track? Is it too advanced, not advanced enough? I know, just want to make sure we get a baseline from you guys on if this is on point. So it helps if you can give us some feedback there. I'll take that as we're good. All right, Ken, go ahead.
All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit into SSE here. I'm not going to read everything because it's really wordy. But when you talk about cloud gateways and how they can affect traffic, depending on how the traffic's getting there, right? If it's an individual, if it's coming from a branch location, i.e. one of our gateways, right? And what does that look like? There's certain parts of that that are going to be very, very unique, right? I mean, we're going to have certain parts of the policy that we call EIP, which is basically your endpoint checks. I want to make sure if you're connecting from Windows, I want Windows 10 or 11. I want all your AV stuff up to date, service packs up to date, all that kind of stuff. If you're coming from a gateway, you know, zoning might come into play. It depends on how the policies are dictated, what the checks and balances might be. But you can see here, just from the features and control that we have, right? From the aspect of not making the assumption of the end station as being the definitive authority. It's right. What does the user need to do? Where is the user? What are they trying to access? What's the best way to get it to them? But keeping everything really, really secure. So again, you know, when we talk about VPNs and kind of legacy stuff like that, and we look at the crossover between security and SD-WAN, I think that's a great example, right? Security is really trying to do full checks and balances all along the way. But in doing so, they have to slow everything down ×2, basically. And in that, you're going to get latency. It's going to sacrifice some of your video, some of your VoIP, things like that. And we don't need to do that anymore, right? It's point to point. If you're an end user and you've been authorized by us and you need to go over there for whatever you need for video, off you go. You've been authorized. You're good to go. You know, all these checks and balances have gone through. I'm not going to go through what they all are, but, you know, based on needs, segmentation, micro-segmentation is a big thing that's been coming up recently. You know, obviously you'd have to have a gateway and be contained with that, which is kind of where we've evolved some of our SD-WAN stuff too, is to bring it further into the environment with like an SD-LAN, right? So right to the switch. And at that point, when you've got all those visibilities I showed you from the Versa operating system, and you bring it down right to a port level, I mean, you've got full visibility. You can control the speed from the standpoint of, you know, low jitter, high throughput, low latency, which from the network side is what you want. But because it's all been designed the same way and nothing's been band-aided together, we can do it at speed and still have all those checks put through. Right. And that's regardless if you're coming from a phone, if you're coming from a branch office or corporate or what have it be. This is more of a conversational piece. I really hope somebody would have jumped on by now. So ZTNA is just at its core, it's you can't unless I say so. It's that simple, right? The user has to be authorized, and we can do different checks and balances for every aspect, whether it's an SD-WAN related thing, i.e. IP address, zone, port number, service, things like that. But if I'm talking about just from a cloud gateway point of view, I might have checks that are to what is the resource you're trying to get? Where you're coming from? Do you belong to the right group? right? You coming from the right side of the world, is the right time of day you should be there. Are you within bandwidth considerations? And this is all if you're just coming from phone, right? Or laptop. So I think that's sort of fidelity and control without really sacrificing the speed part of it, which is the two things are constantly in battle, right? And again, just from the ground up, having to be able to design it, that's what you're going to get. When we talk about ATP, CASB, DLP, and some of these features, this just gets into the fidelity of control that we can get into based on just things like who's the user, right? Are they in marketing? Great. Does marketing have the right to post? They do. Oh, but only on LinkedIn, not on YouTube? Okay. Like that high fidelity of control that you need to get, right? From any point station anywhere, right? Because you're talking about, potentially intellectual property. With media now, you've got to worry about that liability. And you need this sort of tight control, whether it be individual between the URLs, whether it between the app within the URL, what the function of the app within the domain is, and that sort of really tight fidelity. DLP, one of the things that I really want to differentiate that we do in DLP that's different is where we're putting our time kind of currently and moving forward, especially with, and I hate to throw the terms machine learning and kind of AI. We've done the machine learning work, right? We've done that. We've got the libraries, we can attach that. With AI, what we've got now is all the formulas together so that we can get what's on the equal sign, right? And that's been what everybody's been chasing for forever, is trying to get the validity on the other end of the equal sign. And that's where AI is really helping us. So one of the places that we've really put that in there is DLP. It's not easy, but when you have predefined and I go, I'm looking for 3 numerical digits, 2 numerical digits, 4 numerical digits, separated by only one of these 4 type of characters for it to be valid. That is what it is, right? I mean, everybody needs to be able to do that, every vendor. What we've been doing is backing that off and saying, well, what if you're concerned about serial numbers on hard drives? Maybe that's something that's a concern, right? So you don't want those leaking outside the network. So with the DLP that we have and the contextual based of it, and the fact that the AI is allowing us to get into parts of the communications we couldn't with the same lens, I guess, and I hate to keep coming back to it, but it's the best analogy I can give, so that we can kind of back it up and look at it from ways that we haven't really thought of, which gives us the ability to give you that sort of control and fidelity. And in security, fidelity is all that matters. Accuracy is all that matters, right? I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to jump over really quick unless somebody has something.
Aaron,
Hi, Draco.
a question, because you keep talking about AI, and I know AI is the most every vendor is throwing AI nowadays in their product, and they call it, we got AI ready. But the question in here is, what protects you AI? I mean, you're telling me that you have DLP policies that will protect our data, but what is actually doing the checks and balance on the AI, and what models are being used, or what's the back end?
Okay. Now you're getting way deeper than this is going to be on a webinar. I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
which is AI is really hard, because you're right. It's easy for me to sit here on a slide and go, I do it better than anybody else. And you go prove it. And I go AI, magic bullet, right? I understand I mean, I'm an engineer too. I'd love to see a formula that I could give you that would say, here's the formula that AI is doing, but that's not AI. That's not how AI works. If I hand you the formula, it should a millisecond later be different. So it's hard for me to prove that. So one of the things that I can say to prove it, which is what I kind of mentioned just then, is opening up your ability. A lot of our competitors will say, we can get social security numbers. We can get, the easy stuff, right? We're trying to back that off and say, we're not being presumptuous. We don't know what your data leak could be, right? So we want to give you the ability to look for whatever you want, wherever it is, and then control it, right? And the analogy I use is serial numbers on hard drives, because they should never leave a network. There is no good reason, unless you're like doing a support getting a new hard drive because it broke or something. There's no reason that should ever pass your network without you knowing it. You know what I mean? Can my vendor competitors do that? No. That's one of the things that I can point to. I can't point to a formula of how I can prove it. I can just prove it. And this is just one of the ways that I can prove it. It's not what you're looking for. I get it, because I've looked for the same answer.
No, I appreciate the honesty, because the thing is, you know, in the modern era that we live in, everybody slap AI in front of it like a sticker, but
So
just because you slap it like a sticker and a thing doesn't mean that it's actually intelligent.
right. So
And it's been proven many times. So we want to see in reality, yes, I want to protect my data. And I want DLP as a really important for everybody, but
where's the
where
library
is the checks and balance?
right? And where's the data you're pulling in to be able to put into the formula that you're telling me is so great, right? I totally get that. What we're giving you in this is the freedom kind of to control that. I'll get you to a demo in a minute where you can get the visibility and stuff and to kind of have a look at it. But this is a great conversation we should probably take offline. I don't know if this is like NDA level stuff, but it's a great conversation I'd love to have.
Yeah, Federico, what I'll do is I'll send you an email separately. I know JT had to jump off the call.
Yeah.
He might have been
I mean, I can talk around exactly.
No, I appreciate you guys giving us explanation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for the question. Yeah.
Thanks. So, yeah, let me stop sharing first. Reshare. Let me just log in real quick. There it is. All right. Everybody see that?
Yep, you're good, Ken.
Okay, cool. So I want to commit to give you an idea on what we look like. Now, I don't want to give you a full-blown demo because that would defeat the purpose of wanting to take it to the demo. But I do want to show you what your users, analysts, engineers would get to see value from initially, right? Think about it. In the morning, you come in, cup of coffee, sit down, what's going on in my environment, right? Globally, from an SD-WAN perspective, SASE and SSE perspective. Initially, you just come in, you check in, is everything green? Do I have any big problems with users? Anything jumping out? I want to jump into security. So I'm going to open up analytics and jump right in just to start off in security real quick here. And just, again, I'm going to look at, from a security perspective, with all the different ways that I can see it, how's the temperature of my network, right? What's going on? Who are my top this? Who are my most using of that? And how that affects me, right? I say that by, I can sort this however I'd like based on multi-tenancy or deployment or however you guys have had to do that, right? And you can do it any which one of those ways. And then here, we're just going to come in, look at applications. I can key in off of anything here. I really find more information on it and drill down. And again, this is just kind of good temperature. What I want to do though, because analytics is incredibly powerful. So I want to come down in here and get a little bit more defensive, right? From my SSE point of view, right? What's knocking on my front door? What's setting off alarms? You know, what's trying to get in versus what's getting in. And if it's getting in, do I care? Because a lot of times, I mean, if you get a massive, you know, somebody's doing a DDoS or trying to do a DDoS and it's irrelevant to you and it doesn't affect your services, it's good you know about it and it's good you're protecting against it and it's not affecting you, but it's nice to know who's knocking on your door. And that's what this is a good once over of. Again, we can go into any one of these protective security features, drill down into it more, just, you know, find out what's going on. I can get further into analytics if I want, depending on whatever it is, right? Get further down into it, more data, get into the events themselves, what keyed it off, what's important, what are my IOCs, those sorts of things. I don't want to get too deep into it, but you can just see from the control that I'm showing you, you can basically slice and dice any way that you'd like based on what your needs are from a security perspective, because we're looking at the SSE functionality right here. Does that make sense? I don't want to spend too much time in here. Does anybody have any questions without Frederick? I know that you had some good ones there, so I don't want to pick on you, but
No, I'm good for now. Thank you so much.
okay, man. Thanks. All right. Aaron, did you have anything you wanted to bring up real quick?
No, I guess, you know, the commonality I find when I'm out talking to clients is, and you touched on this, I don't know if I definitely wanted to double tap on this. One is that you don't have to go all in on SASE. You know, there's a roadmap to get to SASE. And I think too often people think they have to go from what I today would call legacy networks to where SASE is going, and it's just not that way. You can look at your divestiture strategy, and you can determine, you know, what path to go to get to full SASE. If you ever want to get to full SASE, you don't necessarily even have to get there. The other was just, and I think you've hit the basics. You know, I just find a lot of times that as much as we think we understand SASE, and particularly you guys, right? I mean, it's your life. There's not that level of understanding necessarily across the entire user base. You know, some will have it pinned down, and some are still kind of wondering what exactly is SASE, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's a framework, but we talk about a lot of solutions. So if anybody wants to, you know, it's not, I don't want to challenge you you know, to expose what you do and don't know, but I mean, we're very happy to talk about any of the basics to SASE. And I think it would be great, even if no one has any questions on just some of the most basic concepts of SASE, that make sure we hit on that roadmap, and the incremental approach, if that's the approach someone wants to take.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, you hit it on the head. I can sit here as a vendor and pitch this till I'm blue in the face, but if nobody understands the threat that the vertical or the SASE technology is trying to address, because it is a newer technology. You know, it does address things that haven't even been around for 10 years, right? So there is a lot of misconceptions. There is a lot of misunderstanding on terms. What does SSE mean? You know, what do I need on the client end to get there? Do I need anything? You know, what am I losing if it's not a device? You know, the answer is nothing, but you know, you need to be able to step back and say why that's the case, just from a technology point of view. I can't, my perimeter is the cloud. 10 years ago, I could argue a perimeter, maybe 10 years ago. That argument is so removed for at least 10 years now. Since COVID, that's 5 almost. So when you look at it from that perspective, it just changes how you can control. And with Versa, I mean, that's one of the things is we want to get the user control. And because I'm coming at this from a security point of view. Like, I mean, yes, we do SD-WAN. Yes, that's very important. It addresses a whole bunch of great valid concerns. But from a security point of view, I'm concerned about, is that person supposed to be here doing what they're doing, right? But if I don't know any of those values globally and I can still do the job, that's where we start to come into the big differentiators, right? So if I apply a policy globally, I just got the policy, and whether or not, you know, the gateway may not have all of the functions that you may be using, but if it's applicable to that device or that function in the cloud or whatever you're trying to defend, whatever the right place is to do those security checks and controls, you're going to do that just globally single. And I know everybody does single pane of glass, but literally that's what it is. You know, you make a policy change, you go, okay, it knows internally of everything that they own, of 200 gateways that they own with a SSE, full SSE suite that they've got here and all that coverage, what needs to go where, right? For full protection. And, you know, if the person's coming from a laptop outside the environment and hitting the cloud straight away, a lot of those assumptions, that previously I could make, I can't anymore. VPNs are not a good argument for that. I mean, I guess, if you're Comcast, it's a great argument because you can make a lot of money off the data, but just the speeds, I mean, you got to do everything twice with a VPN. But if you don't need to come back other than authorization, right, which is cloud-based, then, that's going to really help with your speeds, access points. And when I see access points, I mean globally, right? If you are based out of the US and you have to go for work in Australia, that should be transparent to you and the company for that matter, but still have full security defenses and accountability.
Hey, Ken, I'm going to play dumb here for a second. And
Sure.
If we're talking cloud, what if customers have requirements on-prem? How does SASE, SSE, SD-WAN, those kind of things all, or ZTNA, how do they play in a on-prem world, or do they at all?
They do. They do. The difference is how you're going to approach that. When I'm looking at having a gateway on site, that means I get full visibility and control with no assumptions, right? I control everything. So at that point of view, on the gateway, I have all the checks and balances, not just from security, but for speed. I want to have a certain amount of QoS. I want to have a certain amount of all those things. Those really become into play kind of below security on a kind of a data plane, because those requirements are there for the company, but they still have to be checked from a security perspective, right? So when you're talking about SD-WAN, that's where the SD-WAN really comes to shine, right? Is keeping track of where everything is it got all the security checks, but as is important, does it have the high speed it needs, low latencies, minimal Twitter, right? Is it meeting all of the requirements that the policy says it needs to? And again, having that full control, maybe a certain zone in the world, certain department, certain user needs a little bit more than everybody else, right? With SD-WAN, you can do that sort of controls based on requirements. And again, though, even though you're talking the gateways, because you have that user access and that fidelity of control, right? You can give them whatever they need, but still get all of those requirements in from, speed and fidelity point of view of traffic as well as security. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Thanks. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Ken, because we are about to wrap up here, barring any other questions. So 2 points we really should hit on is,
Sure.
hey, there are divestitures that an organization can take by moving to SASE, and I think everyone needs to know, like, so what does that divestiture strategy look like? Like, when is it that you are positioned to understand that, okay, I'm this is coming into life. I have to spend X number of dollars to get this back up, more capital expenditures where I can move some of it over to OpEx by integrating SASE. So one is, can you talk a little bit about what a client should be looking at as far as that divestitures to SASE kind of movement? And then the other is just quickly hit on that roadmap I discussed of, hey, look, here's what it looks like if I'm going to incrementally implement Versa or just SASE in general over time.
Sure. So a couple of things. I mean, when I look at over time, right, it's just like you said, where are the initial needs? Because it's going to be unique for everybody. Maybe somebody's got a firewall refresh coming up and they haven't been happy with support, or they haven't been happy with, release frequency of constantly updating protection and things. So it really depends. Where we're going to shine is if you've got, edge replacement of some sort, right? You've got your firewalls are coming due. We can step in there, give way more features than, I don't care who we're replacing, just because I know what VOS offers, right? It's just a matter of based on, and this is a great salesperson question, but, based on what the requirements are. If you're coming into this for an NGFW refresh, but I can also give you other functionalities that maybe that technology couldn't even offer, right? Things like that. That's where it's really going to come into play. Does that make sense, or did I miss the mark on that?
No, I think you did, and just to kind of complement that is the scalability of your capability, right?
Right.
Of SASE in general.
Right.
When you're when you're kind of based in, you know, a traditional or a legacy network,
Mhm.
there's bringing in people or bringing in your own people to do a project. You know, let's develop project timeline, project scope.
Right.
Let's lay out the capital expenditures that we're going to need in order to expand our network. And then let's do that over time. And depending on the size of the project, you know, we're talking weeks to months. I mean, in some cases,
And
even years to do that. So,
right. And the one thing
scalability. Yeah,
I'd
go
love
ahead.
to, sorry, Aaron, I just want to dovetail because I don't want to get off the point you just made. So when you look at SASE and we talk about SD-WAN, SSE and that, SASE is not, no vendor has kind of ownership of the term. It's more of a philosophy. It's just who can address that solution structure, right? Of SASE, which is full protection regardless of where, when, how, why, but have that full control. So it's not just, you know, us that's doing, we just have what we believe to be the best, simplest solution for it. But as far as, you know, kind of divestiture and things like that, and filling a need, you know, at the end of the day, I want to remove complexity. And that's by definition what my product does by having that one singular operating system and visibility into it. So as you can replace wherever your needs are, I can fill all of those gaps because all of my points of presence have the ability to do anything. It's just a matter of whether it's turned on or not.
Hey, Ken, one thing to add to it, maybe it's a good segue, and I know we're wrapping up real quick. There's a lot of vendors out there that sell SASE, but there is definitely a differentiation between single vendor SASE and
Yep.
universal SASE. So this is kind of a differentiator, how Versa differentiates herself versus our competitors. So Versa is considered a universal SASE vendor. And what that means is our solution was built from the ground up organically. So a single management console can manage your networking components of the SD-WAN side of SASE, as well as the SSE security sides of SASE using a single console. Some of our competitors have done acquisitions to build out their portfolio in SASE, but they require multiple management consoles, makes it a little more complex and difficult to manage the environment. So when you hear single vendor SASE and universal SASE, there is some differentiation there, and versus more on the universal side of the house. So I hope that clarifies.
A lot of
Yeah,
time.
yeah, I think it did, but I want to just real quick go back to the scalability. So just in a very practical case, I mean, let's say you're an organization that has 16 locations, branches, whatever you want to call them,
Yep.
and you need to expand to 1, 2, 3 more branches anywhere in the United States, you know, overseas, you know, wherever that may be. You know, there because of how the overall Versa network has been established. You know, you can move that, you can move there, you can associate there, and you know you can do it in minutes. You know, literally, you get an endpoint device, and then you just through them changing up some control in their software. Now you have just expanded your network. You have expanded your location without again extending hardened networks or hardware-based networks to those locations. So that scalability, whether it's because of an acquisition or because of a growing business,
Right.
it's just something you really have to think about. And the flexibility to use OpEx versus CapEx to do things like that just can't be understated.
And the zero touch provisioning, I know I mentioned it before, but it just as kind of coming to the company a little bit newer, it's still one of the things that floors me because in my industry forever, nobody's been able to solve that. And I've been here for a few months and all I'm seeing is use case after use case. If these guys love us, it was 300 machines, boom, globally, you know? So when you have that zero touch provisioning and you could stand behind it, that's a good little feather in the cap.
Right. Yeah, and I think we got to start wrapping up. Any other key points to hit on, Ken, before we head out here and ask for any questions?
I think, to be honest, I think it was Dan brought it up great just then, the difference between universal, unified. You know, we've got that full coverage, right? And we can do it from VOS. And I think that's one of the big differentiators between us.
And the most important thing, I'm not sure you're going to wrap it up, Aaron, but like I said early on, we kicked off about if there are some things that piqued your interest today, you want to schedule a follow-up call, a more detailed demo with Versa and XenTegra. we're offering a nice custom bottle of custom engraved bottle of some Woodford Reserve for you as a thank you for your time. So I believe at the end of the call, there'll be either a survey or some kind of link where you can provide a request for follow-up that way. And we'll be sure to follow up with you in a timely manner, guys. So thanks for your time and for joining today.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I don't know if my screen is even sharing.
Oh, there you go.
tried to.
Oh, we're back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I wanted to make sure to leave off with the bourbon. Are y'all seeing that now?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, you've already accomplished part one, which is attending the webinar. If you look in the chat, we've put something in there, a link where you can quickly just request a demo. If you decide a little bit later on that you want to get a demo, just come back to XenTegra and we'll make sure to link you up for that. Pretty nice bottle. It's engraved with XenTegra and Versa on there. And then the only final step is you attend that demo and you get a pretty nice bottle of bourbon there. So,
Yeah,
so
you've got my contact information as well. So send me an email if you got follow-up you want to do. I'd love to do it.
right. And yeah, we appreciate everyone attending. Yeah, just have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.